Hi, we're doing the set review for Limited for March of the Machine, and in this part, we're going to talk about red cards. And we're going to start with the cards that we agree about the most. We're looking at commons and uncommons in this part. We're going to talk first about cards that we agree on in terms of our grading, and as we progress, we're going to get more and more argumentative and end up with a probably fight because it's red, so we're going to be very much infuriated. The first card we're going to talk about it is coming in hot. Red, for an instant, target creature gets +1/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. Then you scry 1. We both gave this card a D because we both think that this card is a D. I think it's cheap, but the impact is just not enough. It will be good in some situations, but pretty often it's going to be dead as well. Adding scry to that effect doesn't make it, I think, better enough to warrant main decking it all the time. You will play it sometimes, but you probably want to avoid it.
Agreed. Next, we have Poetic Prankster, 1 in red for a 2/1 devil. Pay 3 and a friction black to turn it into something else. Of course, only as a sorcery. What is it something else? It's Glistening Goremonger. It's a 3/2 Phyrexian devil. When it dies, each opponent sacrifices an artifact or a creature. So that is pretty nice because basically it can be a 2-for-1 basically every time as long as it trades for something. Of course, it is a lot of mana to be able to just get a 3/2. And so we thought, well, this could be a 2-for-1. It is pretty nice, but if the 3/2 body is not that good and the 2/1 on the front is not that good, then all in all, it just ends up being a C. I said it was a C. Servitz, you said it was a C because we think it's a C.
Correct. Again, flawless reasoning, as the chat noticed. Let's move to the next card, which is Thrashing Frontliner. 1 in red, Phyrexian Viashino. It's a 2/2 with trample, and whenever it attacks a battle, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. We both gave it a C. Obviously, you want to put it in a deck that has multiple battles because it gets the bonuses when it attacks battles. But if it doesn't attack battle, it's still a 2/2 with trample. Trample is relevant if you have some kind of combat tricks or permanent boost effects. I guess it's just short of being really good. It's just solid.
Yeah, definitely. Good with backup. All right. Our next one, Invasion of Orgatha, 2 in a red for a 5 defense siege at uncommon. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 4 damage to another target, battle, or opponent, and 1 damage to up to 1 target creature. Kind of a weird one there. But if you can break through the defenses, you get Disciples of the Inferno, a 4/4 prowess human monk. And if a non-creature source you control would deal damage to a creature, battle, or opponent, it deals that much damage +2 instead. So the one thing that's really weird about this card is that dealing the 1 damage to 1 target creature on the front side means oftentimes it's going to be used to pick off a creature post-combat, but then it's a battle that's coming down post-combat. So that's a weird play pattern. But sometimes you're going to clear the way of an X1 and then be able to attack and flip this. So it kind of can play both ways. And 4 damage to an opponent is a lot, or 4 damage to another battle is a lot. So this card just pulls its weight in different ways, leads to interesting game play patterns. And it's only 3 mana. And if you can flip it into the 4/4 on the back, which has this game warping effect, means we think this card is a C+ for all those reasons.
Yeah, I agree. Again, it's a red battle, and red has a lot of creatures that are good at attacking battles. So I think that I will value battles as slightly higher if they're in either red or green. That's part of the evaluation for me. Now we have Searing Barb, 2 in a red for a sorcery. Searing Barb deals 2 damage to any target. If it's a creature, it can't block this turn. Incubate 1. 3 mana dealing 2 damage is not good. The incubate token is sweetening the deal ever so slightly. And the fact that you can eliminate a creature from combat this turn is also sweetening the deal ever so slightly. And the fact that it can go face in the late game is also sweetening the deal ever so slightly. And this is what pushed this card from a D+ to a C- for me. Those little small extra values. It can target a battle and kill it if you bring it down to enough, which is also useful in this format. But generally, I'm not super high on this card because I think Incubate 1 will be only relevant in decks that want to sacrifice this before flipping it into a creature, basically.
Yeah, 100%. Agree with literally everything there.
Okay, good. We can move further then.
Oh, I like this next one. We got a Scrappy Bruiser right out of the MCU. It's a giant raccoon thing going on here. Okay, 3 in a red for a 3/4 raccoon warrior at uncommon. When it attacks, up to one target attacking creature gets +2/+0 and gains trample until end of turn. Then return that creature to its owner's hand and into combat. So 4 mana 3/4, don't love that alone, but the ability is pretty strong when it attacks. You don't have to do that ability, but giving something +2/+0 and trample means you're much better at attacking battles, for example. We talked about that as being a strength in red. And if we can do something kind of cute where you're getting something small back that has some nice enter the battlefield effects, Scrappy Bruiser can do that as well. So it just does a lot of little things nicely when it attacks to apply pressure to your opponent. So we said, hey, that's pretty cool. Let's give this card a C+. And that's what it got.
The next card is Furnace Host Charger. 5 in a red for a Phyrexian Giant. It is 5/5 with haste, and it has Mountain Cycling too. We both gave it a C because that's how it looks like, a solid card that has good stats. It's slightly overpriced, but the price is mitigated by the fact that it can find lands. C means the card is good but not great, and that's how I rated it.
Agreed. Then we have Shadow the Source, 5 in a red for an instant at common. It has Convoke, and you can choose one to deal 6 damage to target creature, planeswalker, or battle, or destroy target artifact. We were thinking, a lot of the removal, some of the bigger things, it's hard to deal with. So this card, as a one or maybe two of to deal with some of the bigger things is a nice insurance policy. And these instant speed convoke creature or convoke spells is nice where, you have a couple things sitting around, your opponent passes the turn, things are looking okay, and now you have the time to clear the board up a bit or mess with their big creature that they deployed or whatever. So for all those reasons, we gave this a C.
Correct. I think it's one of the few ways of red-green dealing with bigger things because the 6 mana is... And instant speed on Convoke is, again, something that bumps it up.
Oh, no, I can't hear you. Oh, you might just be muted.
So next card is Aki's Scrap Chomper, and this is the first one when we have slight disagreements. It seems to me that in red we have a bit more disagreements than in other colors for some reason.
Yeah, because it's very combative as a color.
I think, yeah, it's very antagonistic. But also I think that those disagreements are mainly by half a grade, which means that they're not really disagreements, are they?
Right.
Aki Scrap Jumper, red for a Phyrexian Goblin. It's a 1/1. 1 in red, top, sacrifice artifact or land, draw a card. You give it a D+, I give it a D. I think that it's something that you will reluctantly play, mainly because the body is not relevant enough. I think that the ability is good, but I would like that ability again on something maybe slightly bigger.
Yeah, I mostly agree, but also it's basically Llanowar Elves because of Convoke. Now that's aggressive, but that's the only reason I have D+. And then late game, you can get rid of the lands you don't need anymore because you're convoking everything out anyways. Also, randomly, you can sacrifice those artifacts in red-black if you have incubate 1 tokens or something sitting around. But I agree, the card's not great.
Okay.
Then we have Beamtown Beatstick. That's a cool one. Probably should be a B just because Beamtown Beatstick B, but it's not. It's a single red mana for an artifact equipment at common. And it's equipped to, what do you get? You get equipped creature gets +1/+0 and menace. And when it deals combat damage to a player or battle, create a treasure token. So a pretty cheap way to get a boost and then probably getting some treasure on the cheap. I was thinking, hey, this is a C because I was thinking makes it pretty hard to block. And then those treasures are going to basically pay for itself most of the time. But it is not a lot of stats for how much you're paying. Like 3 mana investment for the first equip is a lot. And so you're thinking C- on that. I just think here you're basically kind of only paying 2 because you're kind of not going to play this until you can get a clean hit in with it. And the menace is pretty nice for attacking players and battles. That's mostly my thinking.
Yeah, no, I agree with those. I just gave it a slightly lower grade, but under the same rationale, which is, two people grading the card, it's always going to be a slight difference on how we understand the grades, even among ourselves. I like the fact that it has manners because it does remind me a lot about the Gold Vein pick from Kaldheim, and that one really suffered for lack of any evasion on it. This one fixed it with the slight changes on the cost, but yeah, the equip cost is a bit too high for me. But Gold Vein pick basically paid for itself, while this one doesn't.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Next one, we have Burning Sun's Fury. It's 1 and a red, instant with Convoke. Up to 2 target creatures each get +2/+0 and gain haste until end of turn. You gave it a D+, I gave it a D. I think that this is the card where Convoke matters quite little, because I either want to play it before attack and I don't want to tap my creatures before attack, or I want to play it during combat and then usually my creatures are tapped. And if I didn't attack with something, it looks a bit dodgy.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think 2 mana for 4 power is actually quite useful. And maybe if you have like big creatures at the top end, you might want to play the Convoke and haste out your big thing. But in general, I just don't think that this is enough to be a reliably main deckable card. I think it's more like occasionally you want to play it.
Yeah, I think that's true, but the picture has a bunch of dinosaurs on it. So I think if you put it in like a red-green deck with dinosaurs, then, like you're saying, you play your 7-drop or whatever stupid thing, and then you tap 2 of your other things to give it, +2/+0 and haste, and maybe that's good enough. But I don't know. I don't really care whether this is a D-, D, or D+. It's just, you'll know if you want to play it, and most of the time it's not going to make the cut.
I think that there might be better tricks. I don't know if in red actually, but I think.
Yeah, I don't think of it as a trick. I think of it as kind of like it's like a trick split card, but mostly like if I can't use the Convoke ability to give something haste, which I admit is awkward tension on the card, then I don't want to play it. But I do think there are spots where you can use a couple of the creatures that aren't getting through anyways to haste one big thing out, and then maybe something with a good ability, and that actually makes it worth the card. But that seems unlikely, I guess.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how it plays out, because I can also see scenarios when you attack a battle with a bunch of creatures, they block it so that the battle survives, and then you play this one, and
like
then you
trade and then make the battle die.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't know if it's mine, but okay. Kenra Spell Spear, 1 and a red for a 2/2 creature Jackal Warrior uncommon as trample and prowess. 3 and a Phyrexian blue to transform it as a sorcery. And on the back, you get Gitaxian Spellstalker, which is a 3/3 trample, war 2, prowess. This one, I saw there's some cards where I'm happy to just flip them right away. I think this one I'm a little less happy because you're going from basically a 2/2 to a 3/3 on turn 3, and that's a lot of mana to not be getting that much of a boost. However, once you have the creature as the 3/3 trample, war 2, prowess on the back, you can really like deal a ton of damage on the following turn. So that part's kind of cool, and the war 2 means it's hard to mess with. But I think also common play pattern is you just kind of keep it as a 2/2 for a little while, and it's going to get the prowess anyways, and then eventually you have an opening and you transform it, and along with everything else, it's just going to be a good card. I just didn't think it was quite in the B territory, because I think not wanting to flip it right away is kind of a disincentive on the card itself. But I will admit, like, you're always going to be happy with this card. So I gave it a C+. You're thinking maybe it's a little better than B-. Maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah, I think that this is the I want to flip it as soon as I can, and then start jamming spells, and then basically trample on it is amazing. In your scenario that you're talking about, to keep it a bit late for later, this is the card that I really feel that the sorcery speed transformation is it's hurting it the most, because this is the kind of card that I would like to be able to flip on instant speed. But yeah, I mean, I think that this can push quite a lot of damage on turn 4 if you flip it and you have a couple of spells that you can cast next turn. Maybe you can play the thing that makes 2/1/1s and then some combat trick in combat, and all of a sudden it becomes like a 7/7 because you cast 2
Yeah,
spells on your
and
turn.
it is like basically impossible to interact with early because of the Ward 2. So
Yeah.
it does
Yeah.
protect itself when you flip it. So as long as your opponent's tapped out, like they can't really deal with the fact that you spend a bunch of mana. So maybe it's better than I'm getting credit for, because I could see like turn 4 you play a battle, another spell, like your battle's going to flip immediately because you have a 7/7. So I mean,
Yeah.
it does have quite a bit of upside. Maybe
Or
maybe it is a B minus.
even this thing that puts something on top of the library second from the top, that kind of spell is good because it slows them down. You get a
And you hit him for
5/5,
5. Yeah,
and you
that
can
is
play this kind
nice.
of like unstoppable tempo kind of deck.
Okay,
Anyway,
yeah. Yeah, maybe B minus. I can join you there. You got one.
Ral's reinforcements. 1 and a red sorcery, create 2/1/1 blue and red elemental creature tokens. I gave it a C, you gave it a C minus. I think that this card is quite pivotal for a couple of archetypes. It provides you with 2 creatures for the sacrifice team decks. It provides you with 2 mana for the convoke decks. And
yeah, you're right. That's probably a C.
that's enough for me for a C, yeah.
Okay.
It's sort of gluey kind of card.
Sure. All right, then we have Trailblazing Historian, 1 and a red for a 1/3 human shaman. Common. It has haste. You can tap it to give another target creature haste until end of turn. I give this a D plus. You give it a C minus. I really want my like haste givers to be meaningless creatures when I'm gonna tap them. Like I like the 1 mana 1/1s that do this. For 2 mana, like yes, it's a 1/3, but I'm really using it to try to haste out the rest of the things, and it's just I'm overpaying for the effect on this card. And I think, 1/3 body for 2 is fine with this, but it wants to be like aggressive, and I just don't really know what's going on with this card. I'd probably just rather have something else rather than hasting everything out.
Yeah, I would like it for 1 mana more, but I still gave it a C minus because I think that some of the red decks that want to have those haste effects are going to be okay with this.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah, that's definitely possibly true. I think also it's a little bit awkward with like battles being in the set, because usually you'll have your creatures in play already and then you play a battle, so like what are you even hasting to attack it? But maybe you could engineer scenarios where that's good.
Maybe you can play a battle and then you can haste out a creature next turn.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And while you're doing that, the 1/3 keeps the fort, has a small break. Again, I don't think that the great difference here is meaningful. In general, I think that we sort of think similar things about the cards.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still probably going to put this in some random decks that really want the haste.
Yeah, maybe the result will be I might put it slightly more often in my aggro decks.
Mm-hmm.
Here we also have a disagreement. Your card, I think, is it, or is it mine?
I think it's yours, but
Volcanic Spite, 1 and a red instant. Volcanic Spite deals 3 damage to target creature, planeswalker, or battle. You may put a card from your hand on the bottom of your library. If you do, draw a card. I give it a B minus, you give it a B, which means we disagree slightly about how awesome this card is. I think it's slightly less awesome, but still awesome. You think it's extremely awesome and among the best commons printed in last 2 years.
Yeah, I think this is the best common in the set. So putting my stamp on it. But I think 2 mana deal 3s have just been historically good. This one's an instant, which gives it a bonus, and it smooths your hand at the same time. I mean, I don't know what more you could want.
What more you can want is that it also can kill battles, which it can. It's a great card. I mean, you're gonna pick it probably from most of the packs that you will see it in.
Yeah, I think it's better than the 2 black kill anything treasure maker. So
yeah, maybe.
And that card's busted. That's the only difference. I mean, whatever. The card's busted at B or B minus.
Let's move on.
Ren's Resolve is 1 and a red for a sorcery. At common, exile the top 2 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. So notably, that templating, we're seeing that more and more. You get the whole extra turn cycle, which is nice because you don't lose it right away. I just think there's a lot of ways to get card advantage in this set. Trying to play this card where you get the temporary card advantage, you have to use them right away, and you have to invest up front with it. And the set doesn't really care about sorceries and instants outside of maybe the prowess creature that we saw. Maybe there's a very, very niche home for this card, but for the most part, I would just rather put like basically any other card in my deck. And And so I might even be a little high on it at D+. I think maybe it's a little lower, but yeah, I don't really want to play this card that much. But you think maybe you do?
I think I do want to play it in blue, red. It has some synergies. I think it's going to be fine as a turn 5 play with if you have the 2/2 vigilant knight that can tap for making another knight if you double spelled.
It's good for that.
Couple of those kind of cards I find it attractive. I think that there might be like red black versions of the decks that are quite low mana value things in them, and you want to do it to just generate more cardboard on the board for your sacrifice fodder.
Okay.
So I mean, a couple of small things that put me to C- on this. Also, I love getting more cards.
Yeah,
So
cards are great.
Maybe that's my flaw there. But
I
yeah,
just feel like they give us this effect stapled to like creatures and stuff so often that I feel like trying to, it's like literally, it's practically tormenting voice, right? But then you have like to get true value, you need like to use both those cards. Now, if a lot of time you'll hit a land and a spell, and that's nice, and if you do that, it's wonderful. But it's just hard to find the spots where you really want to do that until you're in like late game. It's your like your last card, right? And then it's
you want to be lower on the mana curve, and that's definitely the case for that card. You don't want to play it in some red green deck that has like a bunch of 5-drops, for example. Hanger Scrounger, 2 and a red, Dwarf Pilot, 2/1, but it has backup 1, so it can be a 3/2 if you choose so. Whenever this creature becomes tapped, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. So that's basically this set's version of the Axiom Engraver, or the Mutt, I guess. You play it, you put a +1/+1 counter on something, attack with it, discard a land that you had in your hand that you don't need anymore, and draw a card. And then later in the game, you can attack this with this as a 2/1, and then again you get the Ramage effect whenever you choose to. Possibly throwing away Hanger Scrounger, which was very much the case with Scrapwork Mutt a lot of the time. So I see it as a sort of like a weird version of Scrapwork Mutt that can actually leave a +1/+1 counter on something.
Yeah, I think we're in the same area. Like, I like the backup part of the card. I think backup is just great, but I think it just leaves behind a card that is so kind of underpowered anyways, where like if they have just even a 1/3, then yes, you make this a 3/2, but they just play like a 2/2, and it's just like this card is just not that, like the stats just don't, I think, line up that well. The effect is fine, but as far as backup cards go, I'm pretty low on it. I think I'm just not that interested in it.
I mean, how often did you attack with the Scrapwork Mutt just because you had mana to unearth it, and then you wanted to
draw but it was a 2-drop, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Like if this card was like a 1 and a red,
it was a 2-drop, but you needed to invest the second one, another 2 mana. So to get 2 Ramage effects, you needed to pay 4 mana, and you got 2 2/1s. Well, in this one, you pay 3 mana up front, and you get the first effect by making your other creature better and hopefully opening possibilities for attacking. And then you're left with that body, and you can keep that body for something. Again, people in the chat say convoke or something. And then once you get to the situation when you think, okay, I have this land, I don't want to do anything with it, I don't need that 2/1 body anymore, I'm just going to attack, throw the land away, and change it for a real card, hopefully, and that's it.
I do agree in blue-red if you have like enough convoke stuff, because this doesn't have to attack and the 2/1 body's bad. Now that's actually good enough.
For sure. Okay. I mean, we agree it's playable, but it's reluctantly playable. I think that I will play it probably slightly more often.
All right, then we have Redcap Heel Slasher, 3 and a red for a 2/3 Goblin Rogue. At common, it has backup 1 and first strike. See, this one I'm more about because at a base rate, 3/4 first strike for 4 is pretty good. I like that. And then if you give +1/+1 counter and temporarily first strike to something else, like your opponent really can't deal with that. Like turning, you get like your 2/3 is now a 3/4 first strike or whatever. For the turn you can attack. I almost gave this a C+ when I graded it, so I really would not be surprised if it ends up being a C+. I gave it a C because at the end of the day, it's a 4 mana, effectively 3/4, which is a little understated, but the first strike really goes a long way to making this wonderful. So pretty strong card, somewhere in the C+ range. You might be right on this one. We'll kind of see.
I mean, I gave it a C+ because I think that a fail state of it being a 3/4 first striker is just good enough.
Yeah, makes sense.
Also, like a couple of those and you have a wall. That's also
Mhm.
something that can be useful. Okay, Stoke the Flames. 2 red, instant with Convoke. It deals 4 damage to any target. I put it as a B, you put it as a B+. I wouldn't blame anyone for rating it a B+. I thought that B was already high for an uncommon, but the card looks great. Instant with Convoke. Again, can help you making those turns when you play to the board and at the end of their turn kill something using your creatures as mana sources, which is an insane advantage. The more mana you spend in the game, the more likely you are to win. So being able to cast this in those turns when you wouldn't have normally mana for removal is going to be just amazing. But on the other hand, it's sort of similar to the Kaldheim Foretold card when you could just foretell it with the spare mana at some stage and then play it for 1 red. And that was good, but I don't think it was a B plus kind of card. This one is better, but
Yeah,
I
but I
put it
mean,
in
being
B.
able to go face, I think is huge. Like so many
Yes,
times,
that
4
is true.
damage is 20% of someone's life total is a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think we agree that it's a very strong card.
It's
And you should
busted
play it.
either way,
Yeah,
but I just recall casting this card before and feeling unstoppable.
yeah, I never played with it before. Um,
Okay, next we have War Train Slasher even. 3 in red for a 4/3 Wolverine Dinosaur. That's cool. It has Menace, and whenever it attacks a battle, double its power until end of turn. 4/3 Menace, I mean, it being double blocked, obviously it can't be double blocked by 2/2s because, it trades for both of those. But I also think it's kind of awkward stats because, most double blocks you're gonna trade for one of their creatures, but not both at 4/3. But if you do attack a battle, this thing really messes with battles big time. So I do love it in the red green, but I think overall the card I rated as a C. It obviously gets a lot better if the more battles you have.
yeah, and that's I gave it C plus because I assume that people are going to play it in decks that have battles, and then it just becomes really solid. The 3 toughness is something I don't look. I'm not very happy that it has 3 toughness. I think weirdly it might have been slightly better in the decks that I foresee it being good as a 3/4 because it would still have 6 power when
Oh,
attacking
that
the
would be way,
battle.
way better. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Anyway, Onaka Javelineer, 4 in the red, 5/4, Secret Reach, and it has a tap. Onaka Javelineer deals 2 damage to target player or battle. It's a 5-drop. I graded it as a C. You graded it as a C minus. It's a 5-drop with okay but not great stats. 5 for reach, again, slightly low on the toughness there. But the ability of tapping it to ping a player for 2 every turn, or kill a battle and flip it and gain advantage on board is something that is pretty useful. It's like a late drop that will be perfect for board stalls because in board stall situation you're heavily favored if you have that card on board. Still, it's a 5 mana creature, so I can't give it too high a grade. I gave it a C. You gave it a C minus. I think that we probably might
I think,
agree in
yeah, I'll
this
come up to
faction.
C. I think it's kind of hard to kill, like just in terms of having the 4th toughness. Like I think a lot of things can't kill it. It has more than 3 powers. So, Vanquish the Weak can't kill it. So it requires like a pretty specific narrow subset. And if your opponent's just low on life, or you have a battle you're just trying to kill, like this, it's good at attacking. And then also if you can't attack, the tap ability is pretty nice. It costs no mana.
Yeah,
So
that's so
yeah,
big. Yeah.
I think it does enough. I'll come up to C on that card.
Cool.
All right, we have Shivan Branch Burner. It's 5 red for a 4/4 dragon at uncommon. It has Convoke and it has Flying and Haste. I think this card is quite good because a 4/4 flyer is really, really nice. And I could imagine tapping 2 or 3 creatures to be able to cast it for 4 or 5 mana. I just think it's kind of small for how much mana and creatures you're tapping to be able to do that. That being said, I mean, if it does punch past and like attack battles or help close games. So I think this card is like strong, but it is a lot of mana, right? And so I gave it a C just because I think your opponent will be able to attack you back a lot of the time, and it's not that much power that you're adding to the board, but it is pretty inevitable. Like 4 power flying is going to end a lot of games.
I think in the tradition of this review, I gave half a grade more to a flying creature, and
Yeah.
that's. But I agree with everything you said. I think it's like a fine finisher for the red blue deck, for example. Lithomantic Barrage. We're getting to the cards where we disagree slightly more on. It's a one. It's a red mana sorcery. This spell cannot be countered, which is also interestingly gets over any kind of ward shenanigans. Keep that in mind. Lithomantic Barrage deals 1 damage to target creature or planeswalker. It deals 5 damage instead if that target is white and or blue. I gave it a C. You gave it a B minus. I think that the fail state on it is slightly large. If you're playing with a deck that doesn't have either black or white in best of one, it's going to be problematic just dealing 1. I'm not happy with that, especially at the sorcery speed. It might be used like post combat to finish off something that was left over, but that's more or less it. It's going to be clearly absurd if you're playing against the white blue deck.
Yeah, B minus might be a little bit wishful thinking, but I was thinking, well, you could main deck it because it could trigger prowess when that matters. You could rummage it away if you're playing the rummage creature, even though I don't think that card's that great. And then it does basically, as long as they're playing white or blue, I'm pretty happy with the card because it's going to find a target for 1 mana, and that's going to like change their blocking situation. So some of the cards is like it's best when they, the color hoser hits both pieces and you really need them. But I think, the fact that it's going to hit those 60% of decks means that I don't care too much what it's hitting because for 1 mana, I'm going to kill something and I'm going to advance the game in the board state that way. Anyways, that's why I gave it the B minus. It might be closer to C plus, but
Yeah.
I do actually think you can main deck this card.
I think you can
and
main
be
deck
happy.
it. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I just think that also white and blue creatures, not many of them you get the full value of it because
True,
they're
but
like
we mentioned
3.
there's a lot of like 3/4s or whatever. So if
Yeah,
you're
that's
killing
true.
like a 3 or 4 mana card for a single red mana, that's pretty game breaking.
That is true. That is true. It's just like yeah, rare case when I was actually worrying about the fail of the card and you were looking at the positive. Normally we do the opposite way. I'm looking at the upside. You're looking at the downside.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the
It's
main
good
reason why
we're
we
keeping
have
it on
that.
your check. Although you did say that we're disagreeing things and moron. And yeah, I don't love being called a moron, but other than that, I think we it was a good discussion. All right, it's late. You didn't get the joke, but anyways, onward. That was a circus level joke.
That is true. It is getting 1 a.m. here.
Yeah,
I'm getting
sorry.
slower in joke reception. It's my card.
Oh, yeah.
Furnace Gremlin, 1 in red. Creature Phyrexian Gremlin. It's a 1/2. 1 in red. It gets +1/+0 until end of turn. And whenever it dies, incubate X, where X is the power of Furnace Gremlin. I gave it a C+. You gave it a C-. I think that this is a card worth slightly playing around and boosting its power. I told already that I see this card very well with the thing that changes the power toughness to 4/3 and drawing a card and discard in some combat situations. I think that if you can make a 4/4 out of it for 2 extra mana, it's going to be insanely good. Also pretty good in late game because that thing will have to be blocked and will leave another body after it. So
Yeah, that's true. Even if you trade with like a 2/2, but if you pumped it twice, then you could make a 5/5 afterwards. That is pretty strong. So it's probably at least a C. It is kind of awkward because it's not really a very good 2-drop. It's much more
yeah,
like
the biggest problem is not great in the early game. That's true.
yeah. Maybe you can Convoke early and then it's good late. We have Harriet Artisan next. 2 red for 2/3 haste. It's a human artificer. It's uncommon. You made 3 in a friction white to transform it at sorcery speed, and it turns into a 3/4 flying haste. In a traditional fashion, although we switched rules, I was kind of bumping it up because it's a 3 power flying creature. So I thought, hey, flying's pretty good. It's a haste creature, so 2/3 on 3 mana, a little understated for sure, but it does attack reasonably well on turn 3 if your opponent doesn't know it's coming. And then it's pretty inexpensive to flip, and the 3/4 flying component of the card means it can attack battles pretty well. It's kind of hard to stop that. So I gave all of that as a reason to be a B minus.
Yeah, I gave it a C. I think I should have given it a C plus, honestly. I don't know why I gave it a C. Haste is a good ability. Let's put it like that. So, especially in the format where surprise attacks are going to maybe flip battles. So yeah, I maybe wouldn't go as high as B minus, but I think that C plus is perfectly
You wouldn't
serviceable.
because you didn't.
No, but I mean, of course, the
I know what you're saying.
the grades evolve. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you're muted.
Crassus Depth Guard, 2 and a red for Vayashina Warrior, 4/3 for 3 mana. That's good, but it has Defender. But as long as Crassus Depth Guard power is 5 or greater, it can attack as though it didn't have Defender. You gave it a D plus. I gave it a C. I'm definitely following on in the footsteps of Drowsy Tyrannodon from was M21. That card also was 2 mana 3/3 with Defender, and when it got 4 power, it didn't have Defender. It was great there, mainly because there was a lot of +1/+1 counter synergies. But hey, we have backup creatures here. Turning this one on turn 4 into a 5/4 creature that can attack is going to be good, and I think it's going to be very easy to make because there's a bunch of 4 mana backup creatures, and they can actually give extra abilities to it, which is additionally great. That's why I gave it a C. I don't think you want to play it in every deck, but I think that there's going to be decks where it's going to be very, very easy to trigger that ability, and you know, attacking on turn 4 with 5 power is just good ability in general.
Yeah, I guess I was seeing the other cards and they were I didn't realize they were like quite a bit smaller than this thing. Like, so this thing is huge, I think. And so it's not that hard to have a backup creature after it. So I'll join you at C minus. I think it's not, if you can enable it, this card is like disgustingly good. And so it's not that hard to do so. Next, we have Marauding Dreadship. 2 in a red for a 4/1 vehicle at common. It has haste. It's kind of sweet. Enters the battlefield, incubate 2, and it has crew 2. I just think 4/1 haste is a lot of damage coming in hot there. And this is the type of card where if you trade it off, like because your opponent's like, ooh, I'm gonna keep getting hit for 4, then you still have something left behind with the incubate token. And I think it's not that hard to crew 2 on turn 3 because you just play a 2-drop and then you hit for 4 the next turn. And so all in all, I think this card is going to do some quite nice things. Plus 2 pieces of cardboard. So I gave it a C for that reason. Still muted.
Yeah, I think that 2 pieces of cardboard is an important thing to think about it. And maybe I didn't appreciate the fact that the incubate stays in. Obviously, on turn 5, it can crew itself, which is also good because you can flip the incubate token.
Yeah, like no part of the card's amazing, right? Like the
No.
getting a 2/2, like that's not that great. The 4/1, they can trade with literally anything, but I think it'll do enough.
Yeah, I think the haste part of it is okay. I can go up to C minus in it, I guess. I'm gonna play it. I'm sure in a couple of decks. Also great with the Kaladesh invasion when you can put 2 artifacts on board to pump to pump your 1/4. That's
hey, we're getting there.
Okay, now I know what is happening. Every time I click unmute, I switch to a different window, and then when I try to skip a slide, I mute myself instead of skipping to the next slide. Hopefully, I solved it. We have Fearless Skull, 4 in the red for a 3/2 Dwarf Berserker. It has backup 1, but it also has double strike. And I gave it a B. I think that giving something double strike, slamming with it, making it bigger as well, potentially something with evasion as well, and then still leaving behind a 3 to double striking body is a great ability. So that's why I gave it a B. You gave it a C plus.
Yeah, my main thing is I don't dispute anything you just said. I just think it's 5 mana, right? So it is the curve topper. It's going to hit for a lot. The 3/2 double strike, like honestly, a 5-mana 3/2 double strike is like already like pretty good. The fact that it has upside on top of that is pretty great. So probably B- is more accurate. I just think like how many 5-drops can you really have? This is really good at like continuing to attack with your aggro strategies. It's pretty hard to interact with. I will say that you really, really, really want to have another creature to back up onto, which is it shouldn't be hard when you have a 5-drop, because I think the 4/3, like if they deal with it, like it's kind of expensive to just to have that. But even so, I mean, 4/3 double strike is huge. It's hard to interact with in combat. So pretty cool card. I could go up to B- on it, but no higher than that because it kind of still requires things to go in the right direction in combat and things.
Yeah, no, I can see that playing slightly worse. I'm up on it. I like double strike. I like a double strike.
Yeah, I love backup.
On
I mean, I think
substantial.
it's
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
great.
But backup is great. Like imagine playing this on the wall guy and making it a 5/4 double striker for a turn and then still leaving the.
Oh yeah, that's great. Or heaven forbid a trampler creature.
Whew.
What are they going to do?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Invasion of Arcadia, 1 and a red for a uncommon siege, 4 defense counters. When it enters the battlefield, you can discard a card. If you do, draw 2 cards. So basically, you get Tormenting Voice on the front, and then if you can defeat it, what do you get on the back? You get a 3/3 Chiron Flamewright. It's a Goblin Spell Shaper. You can pay 2 and a red, tap it to discard a card to create 2 1/1 blue and red elemental creature tokens, and creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain haste until end of turn. I gave this a C-. You give this a B-. A C- is definitely too low. It's at least a C because the fact that it's a Tormenting Voice that does turn into something else later on is pretty nice. But Tormenting Voice itself is not like a great card, so I probably can't go higher than a C. And the 3/3 on the back is good, but it gives you some 1/1s that turn into 2/1s until end of turn. I mean, it pumps your whole team. That part's solid. I just don't think the front or the back is amazing on this card. But I mean, it's a 2-mana card, so we can't expect too much from it. But you think B-?
I thought B- mainly because I do value red battles much higher because
True.
of the creatures that can attack battles in that particular color are good. I think that changing every land that you draw later in the game into pump your whole team and make 2 hasty
That is
2/1s is great, and that's the reason why I gave it a B-. It might be a C+, but I think that this card looks really solid and will win games.
True. Yeah, I mean, it's 2 mana, right? So 2 mana 3/3 with all that upside. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably underrating that one for sure.
Ramosian Greatsword. 4 and a red for an equipment. It has Convoke. An equipped creature gets +3/+1 and has Trample, and equip is 2, which is not much. And that's the reason why I gave it a C+, because changing every stupid 1/1 that you have into a 4/2 Trampler is a good thing. And even if you don't convoke it, if you play it late, that's fine, I think.
Yeah, I only give it a D+ compared to your C+ because I think it's just a lot of mana to get it going. Now, when it gets going, it's really good, but you like it does nothing really when you're behind. You kind of need a bunch of creatures to convoke it, and the one thing about the convoke is nice is if you don't have attacks, you can use those creatures to then convoke it, so you get attacks. But it's still just so much mana to get the ball rolling on it. Now, admittedly, once you do, your opponent has to kill you because they can't just keep taking damage turn after turn. It kind of reminds me of like Dwarven Hammer from Kaldheim, which that card was incredible, but it came with the creature already attached, whereas this one doesn't, and it's just so, I don't know. There's a lot of mana to get the ball rolling. I agree it's powerful.
So my thought about it was that this card should come to a deck that has lots of meaningless bodies, because you have those Ral's reinforcements that creates 2/1/1s, and
it is good there.
You have the Signpost blue-red uncommon that makes 2/1/1s again, and like lots of those useless creatures that unfortunately don't have the this sort of like +2/+1 effect because they are in red-blue rather than white-red. And this thing turns those creatures into something quite efficient. I don't think you have to convoke it very hard, but if you played Ralph's reinforcements, you can easily play for 3 mana, and then for 2 mana you can equip it. +3/+1 is a hell of a boost, and trample is also
Yeah.
great.
If it's a
Plus,
blue-red gold card, I agree. It's really, really good. I think it just outside of that, it's horrible. But I can come up to like C- and recognize it needs to go just in that lane.
Plus, you might play it in also different decks when you can have like the Billy Goat and put this on the Billy Goat, and now all of a sudden you have like a 4/4 double striker, or you can put it on the double striker before, and you get like a 6/3 double striker. All of those scenarios are quite good for a card that will be pretty solid equipment anyway.
All right. Yeah, I just don't think it has that many homes. That's all. Maybe that's the main
Possible.
difference. All right. Mirren Bane Splitter. Single red mana for an artifact equipment on Comet. It has flash, and when it enters the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control. Equip creature gets +2/+0, and it has equip 3. It's pretty expensive on the equip, and it doesn't pump toughness, so that part is kind of awkward. I think I was a little too high on this card, but the initial pump is kind of nice, and it can mess with combat, and then you can put it on the random things as well. This is actually probably like a worse version of the uncommon we just looked at, where it's kind of expensive to get the ball rolling in the comet trick mode if it's not that good. I will say if you have enough like first striking or evasion or whatever, this card does get quite a bit better. I gave it a C. That's definitely wrong. It's probably more like a D plus. And you said it was a D minus. I think if you have the right creatures for it, like if you have enough of the things where it's like the 4/3 and it can't attack unless it's 5 more power, like just slam this on it, whatever. First striking creatures, double strikers, creatures with trample, flying, the list goes on. I think it can do work in this set. Enough vigilance creatures, honestly, where you just keep moving it over time and it gets annoying. I think it can be a card on like previous versions of it, but you're right, it's probably not good.
Yeah, I don't know. I might go up to D, but I don't like this type of effect anyway, because I think that I'd rather have the 2 mana equip cost of the previous card.
Yeah, no.
Than
The other
3
card
mana.
is
The 3 mana
I
is
gave I gave
excessive.
D plus to a better version of this card, and I gave this a C. So, but yeah, I probably this one's more like a D plus, and then I think maybe the previous sword was like a C minus or something,
Yeah,
or C even.
we'll see how it will work out in
see.
the end. Furnace Rains, 2 and a red for a sorcery. Gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature. It gains haste, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player or battle, create a treasure token. You gave it a D. I gave it a C plus. There is a very good reason why I gave it a C plus. I think that this kind of card will be played in decks that it will be very good in, and that's why I gave it a C plus. There's a lot of sacrifice outlets in this format. Lots of them on the stick, so they're quite repeatable. And those decks are going to draft this card and play it, and then it's going to be a sort of 2-for-1 every single time. And that's why it's going to be C plus, because again, our grades are supposed to reflect the win rate of the card. I don't think it's a C plus card. I think it's going to be exclusively in the decks where it's going to be very good in.
Yeah, I'll come all the way to C plus. I think I agree. I think there's a lot of cards where it's like you would want to pair it with it, and then it's not good unless you have the Furnace Rains. But there's enough cards that do work with Furnace Rains that whenever you get this card, it's easy to make it work versus the other way around. So it's kind of the limiting factor on that. So yeah, C plus for that makes sense.
Yeah, I think as chat says, it's a red black gold card.
Yeah, it's definitely
And
always that. I just wasn't sure that it was going to get there, but the more we think about it, definitely it does.